For those new or people that are going to be listening later, basically PowerApps is a platform that allows you to quickly build iPhone, Android, web-based, web browser-based apps that allows people to be able to use it on, like I said, iPhone, Android, both tablets and phones and things like that. And it's a rapid application development tool because you can quickly build apps themselves. Okay, that should work. PowerApps not so good for use in the desktop browser. So Jeffrey, yeah, you know what? In the apps that I've created in the past, I've only used the web browser. And so I haven't had the ability to compare, how it looks in a desktop versus the browser area. So that I'll be able to talk to you in a month about. It just I think part of it's personal preference, but the other part is that in some cases people just want to be able to log in from any of their systems and be able to use it in the browser window, and that way they don't have to worry about the apps being installed directly to downloaded to their desktop and using it that way. So and when I talk about PowerApps being able to run natively, in other systems that people create for iPhone and Android, they have to go through this whole process of developing the smartphone app, and then they have to post it to the store, and then it has to go through some kind of an approval process with both iPhone and Android to be able to have it appear on the store. And then once it appears on the store, people have to search for it and download it. And so one of the beauties of having PowerApps is it's basically creates the foundation for you, and so you can host any kind of app inside of the PowerApp. And so, for instance, let's say you're using Microsoft Access, which I'm Microsoft MVP for. And so within Access, Access itself does not matter whether I'm creating a recipe database or a database for listing incidents or a wedding planners database or anything like that. Access, it doesn't matter to Access what kind of database that you're running. It can handle any kind of Access database that you create. And PowerApps is the same way. Basically, you create a PowerApp of let's say a customer tracking system app or a recipe app or anything like that, and you load the PowerApp one time on your I happen to have an iPhone 6s, so you download PowerApps from the App Store, and then once it's there, you can run any kind of app that you create in that foundation. So it's really it's nice from that standpoint that you don't have to write an iPhone app using there's a lot of different database development tools there, ASP.NET and Xamarin and all these different tools, Alpha Software, things like that, whereas this way you just you download the PowerApps app, and then you can run any kind of app inside of that. And so what I'll do is, let me jump over to PowerApps here. Second. It's not wanting to click, so I'm going to do it this way. And so, and let me know if anybody has any issues seeing my screen. But basically, what you see here is the PowerApps screen, which shows you some of the apps which I've developed. And so I can click on one of these apps. And again, in this case, I'm running it in the browser window. I do have I don't have the cable for me to plug in my iPhone to show you what it looks like on the iPhone, but this is kind of an emulator that shows you. And in this case, this is a phone. Again, it looks like it's created for the iPhone. I can click on these buttons and jump into it and see information about it. This is actually one that I created using either an Excel sheet or one that I used using Google Sheets, and it kind of gives you an idea of what a Power App looks like. You can search for different things. For instance, if I'm looking for Allendale. These happen to be a list of chambers of commerce, but I can type in Allendale and it'll automatically find that, and I can click on this little arrow, which will open up a single view form of that information. I can click on the pencil to edit it and change, this data here. And I can click on the little check mark to save it. I can delete it here if I wanted to, or I can go back to the main screen. If I delete this and get rid of this, it will show me all of the different chambers again. So this is in an emulator window. This is kind of what a Power App looks like. There are a lot of different choices for apps, and you can go into Power Apps. You can look at there's a lot of different templates that are built in, and you can kind of browse through the different templates. You can see here one's a to-do list, customer success one, contest registration, context, case management, just a lot of different types of things. So you can go to PowerApps.com and you can kind of see these. The one thing about Power Apps that I always remind the group, though, is that Power Apps does require you to have a business domain. You can, in this case, I'm using Office365day.org, but I could have used WorkSmartDB.com, which is my domain, my company's domain, but you can't use anything like gmail.com, yahoo.com, CompuServe.com, anything like that. You have to use an actual company site. So I'm going to pop back over to Skype again. All right, so Jeffrey can't see the share screen. So I just want to verify, Lucy and Sarah, can you see this shared screen? And I'm going to, all right, Sarah can. All right, cool. So that's kind of what Power Apps is all about. The beauty of it is that you can create an app generally for your organization, and you can a lot of people actually utilize SharePoint and put your apps into SharePoint for people to be able to download and use directly. So you can do a lot of cool things like that. In terms of data sources, Power Apps can use a lot of different data sources, and so you can use anything from Excel to SQL, Azure to yeah. All right, I see Lucy. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, Andy, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. I just want to let you know, I am seeing your screen, but it is showing the Skype for Business.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I switched over to Skype for Business to see if there were any comments in there. So I appreciate that. I don't know if I can, for some reason it's not changing my window here. I don't know why it's not doing that. So I'll just switch back and forth so you don't have to stare at Skype. But it's nice because there are many different back-end sources that you can use. So you can use Excel, you can use SQL Azure, you can use SharePoint lists, you can use an Excel document that's stored in Dropbox or in OneDrive or in Google Drive. You can use Google Sheets. So there's a lot of different ways of getting at that data. There's also what's called a common data model, which I'm not going to go into today, but when Ben Clothier presented last month on CDMs, or what's Common Data Service, which allows you to connect to portions of your data. And a good example of what they use for that is, let's say that you, actually one of the things that Microsoft does is they have a health information system that they pull out just a small portion of, you don't want all of your people in your company accessing your health information. But what they do is that every year they encourage people to do an annual checkup. And if they do that, checkup, then they can either Microsoft will make a donation to a local charity, or they'll have it so you can get like a mug or something like that, a notebook or something like that from Microsoft. And so the Common Data Service, or what used to be called the Common Data Model, allows PowerApps to connect to just your employee ID and the date of your last physical. And then based on that, people can log into their Power App and say, yes, I did the physical, and I want to use, I want to get a mug, or I want to donate to this particular charity. And so that's what that Common Data Service does. It also allows you to sync between devices, so that if you're on your iPhone and you're on the road, then you can actually make edits to that data. And when you make edits to that data, it'll automatically sync up when you get back. So that's what that's for. I'm going to switch back over to Skype again. And so that's kind of what that is. There's also another part of PowerApps which is called Microsoft Flow. And Microsoft Flow basically allows you to build some kind of automation tools in there where you can say, okay, I want, whenever a record is added to this Azure database, I want it to send me an email so I know that it was added. And so you can set up some automation doing that. So just a quick summary, that's kind of what PowerApps is all about. You can have many connections, you can have different flows and that kind of stuff. And next month, I wanted to announce that we're actually having someone from the Microsoft PowerApps team is going to be joining us, and they're going to be talking about formulas. Formulas, and let me jump on my other computer real quick. Yeah, his name is Greg Lindhorst, and Lucy, I'll email you about that too. So Greg will be presenting in August on formulas, and basically a formula. If you're used to like Access and Excel, like I am, there's a lot of VBA coding that we do to kind of automate different parts of the system. So you can create a button and have it do certain things. Well, with PowerApps, it actually uses formulas to do different things, and I equate the formulas that you see in PowerApps with what you see in Excel. It looks very similar to, and in fact, I'll jump back over to PowerApps for a second, and we'll jump into one. Give it a second to load. Oops. Hold on a second. Let me jump over. I think it doesn't. Like, because I've got it open multiple times here. Yeah, it's not liking me right now, but basically what it does is it looks like an Excel formula, the way you build Excel formulas, because basically you choose what control you're working with, and then in like the Excel formula at the top, you have what you want it to do, changing the back color, just a ton of that kind of stuff. So Greg will be joining us next month to talk about formulas. But what I wanted to do this time is, if and there is a white paper for I'll have to dig it out, or maybe Lucy will know, but there's a white paper that Ben and I had written last year that's on the Microsoft site, which talks a little bit about the difference between Access Web Apps and PowerApps, and basically how to get started with PowerApps. So I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I can dig out the link to that as well.
So this is not much of an app, but I just, for some reason, spent an inordinate amount of time developing it because I couldn't get it to do a couple of very simple things. And this relates to my comment about wanting to tear my hair out when I'm working with, as I'm trying to learn PowerApps. So this is a very simple PowerApps app that is connected to a SharePoint list. This particular app allows the users to enter information, and they can then only see their own entries. In this case, they're going to different clients and they're just entering some text about the visit that they made to that client. And so the app works like this. So here I am. I can only see my entries. There are more entries than this, but I can only see the ones that I created. I finally got that formula working. I really had a hard time with that for some reason. And then like I say, it's very simple. When you go to create a new one, you just click the account name from the list, and this comes from a lookup list that's in the SharePoint, in the same SharePoint list. So they just pick that, and then they enter their, apparently there's some default information in this. Oh, I see what I did. Here, let me go back. Let me go back and create a new one. What I couldn't get it to do is to filter this list so they can only see their own entries. And that's where I tore more of my hair out.
Were you able to get that to work?
I was never able to get that to work. And so,
because there is, I do know in the white paper that Ben and I had written, Ben wrote a portion about filtering that information. And because by default, it also PowerApps allows you to, search for different fields as well. And there are ways that you can search for the data that's only on what you see on like this screen, but you could also set it up to search for by all the fields within the database as well, or that table.
What I wanted to do was to go to my edit and have this drop down pull from a different list. That is for a different SharePoint list. Because I know I should be able to filter this list. But as it is, this is connected to a lookup list. Here, maybe I should show you the SharePoint library so this makes a little more sense.
Andy, I did just find a document, a Word document created by you and Ben, which I've posted the link in the chat.
Okay, thanks, Susie.
Okay, so here's the list. Let me just go ahead and edit it. I'm not using the title column, so I'm just going to leave that blank. But they pick an account, and this does a lookup to another SharePoint list. It's this one called account list. The problem with this is it shows each salesperson all of the accounts instead of only their own. So I want the Power App to look directly, to pull directly from this list and only pull those accounts that are their accounts. And I have not been able to get it to do it.
Gotcha.
It says you can do it, but I haven't been able to figure out what formula to put in this so it pulls from that secondary data source.
Interesting. Okay. That's a great question. I'm going to reach out to Ben and see if he's done that before. I have not done that, so we'll see if he does it. Otherwise, it'll give me something to do later in the week.
So the part, all right, and that, fair enough. And this is the part that I really worked on quite a bit, just trying to figure it all out. And that is when a user opens the form on their device, how to get it to show only their information. And so I set up, I had to figure out how to go to the browser items formula and set it up with a filter such that it looks into this SharePoint list and only shows where the email address of the author is the same as the email address of the current user logged on to the PowerApps app. And I mean, this took me to figure it out like 4 hours. I just thought this should not be that hard. I mean, I'm an Access developer, and I've built complicated InfoPath forms and workflows, and I've been in IT for a long time. And I really struggled. It does work now. I was very happy.
Right.
But it's just, and I guess maybe that's just the nature of learning something new, is you have to go through this very painful period. So.
Yeah, and especially, this is a good example of a formula, and it's just it's very different than the way that we write, either InfoPath or VBA.
Yeah.
So it does take some getting used to.
Yes, even something simple like this, because when I first created this, what I did was I created the list in SharePoint, and then I just went to the, let me go back to this. Well, now it's in the older format, but in the new format for the list, there's a button that says create a Power App based on this list. Have you used that before?
Yeah, I did try that one time, but it was just like a real quick thing that I did in like 10 minutes, and I didn't do anything more with it after that.
And actually, even if you're in PowerApps and you go create a new app and you say you want to create an app based upon a SharePoint list, it will go through and do a lot of the work for you. So it created this, let me get back to this. It created this, pretty much this screen for me, but it did not include this field for some reason. It included, let's see, it included this field, account. Well, that's not the field I wanted. I wanted the one called account name. And account name doesn't appear in the drop-down for some reason. So, boy, that took a lot of research to figure out. You have to put it in like, it's account name. Okay, so it puts it in there. Well, then it puts in this rather cryptic message. Property expects text values, but this rule produces incompatible record values. Well, what the devil does that mean? I finally figured out that for some reason you have to include the word value at the end.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that before.
Do that, then it pulls it incorrectly. So yeah, it's been entertaining.
Now, have you used any of the to solve this particular thing? Was it just you trying a bunch of different things, or did you go to like a user forum to figure it out, or how did you get the solution?
I did go to the PowerApps user forum, and I tracked down that error, this error, and I found a number of different responses to it, some that led nowhere, some that that had never been answered. But then one person said, "Oh, well, you've got to add the word value."
Gotcha.
So, yeah, and usually the people are pretty responsive on the PowerApp user forum, but I've posted other stuff there that just goes unanswered. I feel like I still feel like this is a not ready for prime time platform, but I'm trying to make it so.
Yeah.
Having said all of that, the few applications that I have sent out to clients, that I have set up for clients, they're very happy with.
Okay.
The fact that they can have an app on a phone, they're very excited about that. So.
And
yeah.
in the apps that you're creating, are they fairly simplistic, like what you're showing here,
Yes.
or do you get more complicated with those?
I haven't gotten anything more complicated because I'm just trying to work my way around the simple ones first.
Okay.
So the complicated ones will be coming. And one that everybody has asked about is there a way to include attachments with this?
Right.
They'd like an entry, and then they could include a couple of pictures. And I know that is just not possible with PowerApps right now.
But you do have the connection to the camera, so would it be possible to, well, obviously this isn't ideal, but can you take a picture of that document and then store that inside of the app that way?
Not that I have found. There is a way to do it. If you use a spreadsheet as your data source and OneDrive as a storage spot for the attachments.
Okay.
The problem with that is it's per user. So we need to set it up individually for each user. So the spreadsheet and the OneDrive storage needs to be in their account. It can't be in a common account. And we need to set up something in a common account so that other people can look at that information.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised that they wouldn't have something where you could store the document inside of SharePoint that would be accessible to everyone inside of SharePoint and then connect to it that way.
You could do that, but the pictures don't get stored there. You can't store the attachments that way. The attachments would go to each individual person's OneDrive folder, and then it gives them sort of just random names. It names them randomly, so you don't know which pictures go with which entry.
What happens?
I've done a lot of research. Nobody has found a workaround yet.
Okay, and I was just going to say, so what happens if you share that OneDrive folder with other people within your organization?
Well, then you would see their pictures, but again, there wouldn't be an easy way of going to SharePoint and seeing the entry, say, so-and-so, so-and-so made this entry.
Right.
I want to see the pictures for them. There's no way to find them.
Gotcha.
So
interesting.
This, in my opinion, this doesn't make a great demo because it just shows all the shortcomings of PowerApps. But anyway, that's where I'm at so far, and I'm still working.
Yeah, and I do think that that's good because as we have these monthly meetings, hopefully we'll have. I know summer is kind of rough because a lot of people are on vacation, but I think that as we enter the fall, I think we're going to have more participants, and hopefully we'll be able to run into these kind of things where someone will have encountered it themselves and say, hey, have you thought about this handling it this way kind of a thing.
Yeah, right. Hopefully by next meeting, I'll have a couple of solutions and I can follow up on what I've done.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Good. Well, it's exciting to see that you're working with it and you're presenting it for clients to use. I have it. That's kind of my next thing to do. I've spoken with one client about developing something for them, just kind of as a test project, where I'm sure I wouldn't even charge them for it because it's most of it's learning and it's not really fair to charge a client for learning on their time, But it would be great to have to play around with apps the way customers need them as well.
Right. Yeah, and here's another one that I created. I'll just pull it up here. They decided not to use it. They decided, oh, that's great. Nobody will use it though. But let me just see what this one does. So this one's just a little more, I guess, nothing all that interesting. A little more, just got more fields on it. And in this one, I was experimenting with the option buttons. Now, one thing I found out about these option buttons, one thing I wanted to do was when you turn the option button on, I wanted to have other fields appear visible.
Yeah.
When it's off, they become invisible. Well, that works. The problem is that when they become, if you turn them off and they become invisible, and then you turn them on again and they become visible, they get resorted to the bottom of the Power App.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Which is annoying because
right.
I wanted them up in a certain location. I worked on
right.
that for quite a while, but
yeah, otherwise they'll think that nothing happened.
Right.
Unless they scroll all the way to the bottom.
Unless they scroll to the bottom and see.
Yeah.
It. That's right. Yeah.
So you'll have to have something that says, well, I wonder if that works with the label. Like it changes the word taxable to, taxable on go to bottom.
And scroll to the bottom.
It changes the label,
That's actually not a bad idea. I could try that.
Yeah. At least it will make people see that, oh, okay, something changed.
Right.
And the only other thing I can think of, which is, again, it's kind of a pain, but you could have it do a little pop-up window that would show it not as part of the screen that you're on, but it would overlay it a little bit.
I'd love to see how to do that.
Okay.
Never thought of that.
Cool.
But if you've got something you can demonstrate on that one, that would be cool.
I don't, but it's something I can definitely put on my list of things to, because I know I've seen that happen somewhere, but I'm trying to remember where I saw that. It may have been at an MVP summit a year ago,
Okay.
but I didn't create it myself. But I'm going to jot it down here.
I feel like there's a huge potential for PowerApps, but I do get annoyed when people say, oh, PowerApps, well, Microsoft says this, PowerApps, you can use this as a replacement for InfoPath and Access apps, Access web apps. And I'm thinking, nah, I don't think so. You're dreaming if you're thinking this is going to replace either of those.
Well, I think that Microsoft Flow is kind of slated to take take over for InfoPath. Have you played around with Flow at all?
A little bit. I mean, it's just like a workflow.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know it's a little bit trickier, for some people again. But then the thing I like about the Flow is that Microsoft Flow is that after you build the Flow, it's kind of in that library for other people to be able to utilize. And so if you have somebody that's creating an app, they can then take and insert that flow into their app. So if you've got someone on a team that can build those flows, then it makes it available for other people.
All right, I'm going to look into that further. I did find a Power App here where, and maybe Microsoft has fixed this now, you can see I've got this field special equipment needed. And
Right.
when I turn it on, it makes that.
Yeah.
And I can turn it on and off, and it's not resorting it. Maybe they fixed that now, and they didn't call.
Right. Yeah. I know it's. Yeah,
So,
unfortunately, but
yeah, I'll have to look in. I'll have to check that further. That might make this more interesting.
Yeah.
But this app uses also the I can't remember what they call this control.
The slider.
The slider, yeah, for setting numbers.
Yeah, I like that.
And of course the drop downs and then the toggle buttons. So
Yeah, that's great.
This is another good one that I played with, and then they decided they're not going to use it, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, one of the apps, I was thinking about creating. One of my clients is a cemetery. Actually, they have five cemeteries in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I'm at. And the thought is that it's an older cemetery, and if something happens where, let's say, a vase breaks or something like that happen, or they need to mow or whatever it is that they could take a picture of the gravestone, and it would record the GPS coordinates of where that is right into the app. And so that's something that I'm hopefully probably won't happen next month, but probably in a couple months I'll be able to demonstrate how that works too.
Oh, good. Yeah, that would be very interesting to see.
Yeah. And Sarah, if you're still there, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. So Sarah just dropped off. So.
Oh, okay.
So. All right, very cool. Well, I appreciate you showing us this. This is very cool.
Yeah, thanks for bearing with me on that.
No, that's great. So, while I have you then, Jeff, are there any things that you'd like to? I mean, I think things like this are great, and it sounds like we probably need to have like a Q&A session with someone from the PowerApps team. And I think that will be, when Greg joins us next month, if you're still having an issue with something like this, that would be, or like that SharePoint, pulling the right data. It'll be great to have him kind of cornered and he can help answer that. But it sounds like we may want to have a whole session that's strictly, Q&A for someone like Greg. Yeah, I can't hear you for some reason. Okay. That's all right, Jeff. So what I was saying is that if you didn't hear me, it sounds like, for some of those questions, if you still are running into problems next month, it may be good for you to have those ready for Greg. Since he's on the PowerApps team, we can have him, try and answer some of those kind of questions. Yeah, cool. All right, good. Well, we're almost at 2 p.m. So, again, Jeff, I appreciate you joining us, and Lucy, thanks again for, hosting this again and recording it for us. And Jeff, you've got my email address as well. So if you have other questions or anything that I can, put into either next month, or if there's something that I can at least, try and figure out for you before then, that would be great.